"Move," she said, and the word struck the concrete like a dropped wrench. Ava Kingsley cut through the subterranean garage with the stride of a storm. Her sleeveless graphite dress moved like armor. The sedan waited in bay K-12, polished black, engine low. A black man stood by the driver's door with a calm posture and a white shirt pressed knife straight. She did not ask a question. She reached up, pinched his tie between two fingers and pulled him an inch forward. "You people never learn boundaries," she said, eyes cold as the garage light. The echo carried. A valet looked away. Security turned, listening. The man did not flinch. He did not step back. He simply let the tie fall against his chest and answered evenly, "Ms. Kingsley, my name is Caleb Monroe. I am your driver." Her jaw tightened, not for long. She moved to the rear door. He opened it at exactly the right angle, one hand shielding the frame so she would not bump her head. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar and new leather. The dash clock read 7:01 a.m. Her calendar was stacked, marginless. Board prep, founder's breakfast, term sheet review, brunch with investors who loved blood in the water. Caleb closed the door with a soft hydraulic hush, slid behind the wheel and tapped the root. No music. Air at 69 degrees, mirror angle precise. The car pulled from the bay, tires whispering on painted lines. "Name," she said to test him, as if he had not already given it. "Caleb Monroe." "Experience." 8 years professional, 3 in private fleet, clean record, advanced defensive certification. His tone did not advertise anything. It simply placed the facts on the table. "Your phone," she said. "Hand it over. We had a leak last quarter. I do not allow devices in my cabin unless I issued them." He passed it back, screen already on airplane mode. She dropped it into her bag without looking. "Lena will return it at day's end. Do not be late again." "I was early, Miss Kingsley." She glanced up, caught the steadiness in his eyes through the mirror. "Early is late when I do not recognize the face." The elevator ramp spillway opened them to morning. City steam curled from grates. Sun hit the hood in a thin blade. Caleb merged without jolt or brag, slipping through traffic like he had memorized the street's pulse. He had. He had stayed up half the night mapping alternates, cataloging construction, clocking which lanes swallowed time and which lanes paid it back. At the first light she said, "Curb at 90 seconds. Do not hover. I refuse to look obvious." "Yes, Miss Kingsley." She watched his hands. No twitch, no show. Just a measured cadence on the wheel, 10 and 2, shoulders quiet. It irritated her that his composure did not crack. It irritated her more that something about it steadied the car like ballast. A message pinged on her tablet. Investor brunch moved up. She exhaled sharply. "You will keep me invisible," she said. "That is what you are here for. Do not talk unless I ask. Do not look back unless I call your name." Caleb made the next turn and found the seam between bus and taxi without horn or flare. The sedan floated into the service lane in front of Kingsley Tower East. A woman in a navy suit, Lena Park, waited by the revolving door with a folder, scanning the garage below through the plate glass. Her eyes flicked to the car, then to Caleb, then to the clock. Inside the cabin, Ava replayed the first seconds in the garage. The tie between her fingers, the solid, unbothered reply, not defiant, not meek, some third thing. It felt like a mirror she had not consented to stand in front of. Her heel clicked once against the floor mat. "You said Monroe," she murmured, as if testing the syllables for weakness. "Do you have a family, Mr. Monroe?" "One daughter," he said. "Name is Naomi." "Childcare," her questions fired like diagnostics. "Handled." "Good," she said, meaning not my problem. Then, after a beat she hated herself for, "How old?" "8." She nodded to the window instead of answering. The car rolled to a stop with no nose dip. The door opened. Morning swallowed her. Cameras flared. The building's glass caught her reflection and made her look taller than she felt. Before we jump deeper into this day, hear me for 10 seconds. If this story moves you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. The door closed. The sedan was quiet again. Caleb checked the mirror not to watch her but to keep time. He would not be late. He would not be loud. He would do this job at a standard that did not waver for anyone. Back in the lobby, she glanced once toward the curb, as if trying to pinpoint what had just unsettled her. The glass kept its secrets. Her calendar screamed for conquest. She should have forgotten the garage by now. But she had said, "You people." And Caleb Monroe had answered with the softest refusal she had ever heard. The refusal to be reduced. He eased the car into standby and waited, breath slow, eyes forward, like a man who had already weathered storms and learned to steer by feel as much as by map. Somewhere in the glove compartment, a folded crayon drawing from Naomi pressed into a seam. 4 words in careful block letters: be kind, be brave. The day was not ready for that kind of instruction. He was. The second pickup should have been routine. At 7:44 a.m., Lena signaled from the curb with 2 fingers, ready in 90 seconds. Caleb aligned the sedan in a slipstream of black cars and delivery vans, then stepped out to open the door just as Ava exited the rotating glass with a forward tilt that meant time is prey. "Route to the Founders Hall," she said before the door latched. "Market Street is jammed." "I have Canal, then Vernon. 2 minutes faster," he answered. She did not praise. She did not contradict. She stared at the calendar stacked on her tablet, then at the city like it had the audacity to exist without asking her. They took Canal. The sedan threaded under the L tracks where morning shook metal like loose change. She watched his eyes in the mirror, measuring how much attention he gave to the road, to her, to the art of not colliding with things. Most men tried to meet her gaze every 10 seconds, like attention could be converted into favor. He kept his scan the way pilots keep theirs, constant, unhungry. At Vernon, an armored truck stalled mid-turn, blocking 2 lanes. A wave of brake lights spread ahead like a red tide. Caleb downshifted with a small breath. "Side street," he said. 30 seconds delay. "Do not announce delays," she said. "Erase them." He nodded once, turned the wheel and flowed into a side corridor of brick and shadow that smelled like bread and last night's beer. Out again, clean. Delay erased. "Temperature is high," she said. He lowered it 2 degrees. She watched the numbers tick down. Annoyed that he had gotten it right the first time, and annoyed to discover that she preferred this cooler air to the slice of control she had taken. Her tablet chimed. Graham Lowell, investors expect numbers beyond guidance. No softness today. The word softness had been dogging her since she refused a merger that would have gutted a factory. Strength did not always look like a blade. She knew that. The board did not. A call came through on the console from Trent Daly, Security. Caleb did not touch it. His eyes flicked to the mirror for permission. "Answer," she said. Trent's voice filled the cabin. "We had an unknown male loitering in the private garage earlier. Description matches your driver." Caleb kept his hands quiet on the wheel. "Handled," Ava said. "He is authorized." "Do you want me to run his phone?" "It is in my bag." "Copy, watch your 6, boss." The line clicked. She felt the small satisfaction of control and the greater annoyance that it had been necessary. Her eyes lifted to the mirror. "You will not linger in my sightlines without purpose," she said. "I was exactly where the manifest placed me," he answered. "No edge, just geometry." At Founders Hall, cameras hunted for her. She exited with a face carved from indifference. Behind the glass doors, she split a room with a glance, shook the right hands, cut through opening remarks, and sat where the stage lights found polish and money. Caleb watched the reflection of the scene in a windshield across the street and measured time. When she returned, she entered the car like stepping into a vault. "We will add a stop," she said. The Finch Club, use the loading bay. Noted. And Mr. Monroe, she paused as if the word itself cost her, you will not look at me like we share an understanding. We do not, he said. We share a schedule. The corner of her mouth tugged, not into a smile but into something that conceded the line as clean. The car moved. At the Finch Club, entry was a metal mouth painted white. A guard waved them through and then looked twice at Caleb. He had that practiced grin men wear when they mean to press dignity down without getting their hands dirty. Delivery vehicles back there, the guard said, gesturing away from the door. Caleb kept his voice even. Client entrance. The guard placed his palm on the hood like claiming territory. Back there. Ava's door opened. Her shoes hit concrete. She saw the guard's hand on the car she paid for, the car that had absorbed her mornings and nights for years. She felt something primitive and unhelpful climb her ribs. Remove your hand, she said. The guard glanced between them, recalibrated, stepped back. He did not apologize. He simply declared that he had been right in a tone that pretended to be neutral. She went inside. In the darkness of the loading passage, Caleb sat with stillness so complete it felt like a refusal to be moved by anything that did not deserve movement. He thought of Naomi's teacher conference at 4 p.m. He had built this day like scaffolding so he could make it by 4:05 without fail. He would deliver the billionaire to every room that asked for her and still arrive to hear about science projects and playground treaties. This was the math of his life. Impossible-looking sums balanced one careful minute at a time. When Ava returned, her face carried the glaze of public charm. She slid into the rear seat and closed the door. Lunch, he asked, not looking back. Coffee, she said, always coffee. He set the cup holder shield and turned the corner like a sentence concluding itself. The day tightened. The room temperature for everyone else would drop soon. They just did not know it yet. By noon, Lena had seen enough small wrongs to assemble a pattern. She paged through onboarding logs until she found the exact timestamp. Caleb Monroe cleared. Fleet 1 contract, Kingsley Foundation. Renewal cycle active. She stared at the screen. How had Ava not recognized the foundation linkage? Because recognition requires looking. She stepped to the curb as the sedan rolled in with that same unshowy grace. Caleb exited, opened the rear door, and faded back like a curtain pull in a theater you forget is there. Ms. Kingsley, Lena said softly as Ava moved past, a note for your calendar at 3. Ava's eyes were on the email drafts lined like dominoes. Move it to 2. It is Naomi's conference, Lena said. Ava looked up, annoyed that the name registered inside her as a small bell. Whose conference? Mr. Monroe's daughter, Lena said, the words chosen like instruments. Clean, functional, impossible to turn into complaint. His request board is flagged green. He built your afternoon routing around it. Ava did not blink. She did not yield an inch. I do not carry my driver's domestic schedule in my head, Lena. Of course, Lena said, only your own. The sedan swallowed her again. The door closed on an office joke that had never been funny, even to the men who kept retelling it. On the next leg, a message from Graham Lowell lit the console. We will have optics if you keep parading staff through investor entrances. Remind security to keep the lines clean. Ava typed back with 2 thumbs. Remind security to keep the bias clean then. She did not send it. She deleted it and wrote, noted. She hated the taste of that word. Traffic thickened near the river. In the mirror, Caleb saw a cyclist clip a mirror 2 cars ahead and wobble. He made a tiny break, absorbed the chaos, and gave the city room to make a mistake without letting it cost her a minute. He had made a habit of that with people too. Mr. Monroe, Ava said abruptly, where did you work before Fleet 1? Warehouse logistics, night manager, before that small accounting shop. Why the shift? Naomi, he said, Night work stopped being time, it started being absence. The answer had the clean geometry she both distrusted and could not fault. She watched his hands again, still level. No flourish. She searched for the hairline crack where a man's composure gives away a plea. She did not find it. They pulled into the Brixton, an old hotel converted into a glass and brass incubator of deals. In the covered drive, Diego Alvarez manned the valet podium. He recognized the sedan's ID before the tires were fully within the sensor. The driver profile flashed Monroe. Green. He had seen that name in 2 systems now. Diego stepped forward. "Good afternoon, Ms. Kingsley." Ava offered the smile she reserved for the useful unseen. "Diego." He looked at Caleb and then at Ava. "Do you want me to log Mr. Monroe inside as primary driver? It will clear some security friction." Ava's expression cooled a degree. "Why would there be friction?" "Because the system is often kinder than people," Diego said, then immediately regretted the poetry of it. Caleb's eyes warmed the way gratitude warms without trying to be seen. "Appreciate it," he said. "Do not personalize my logistics," Ava said, and walked into the hotel like the corridor existed to accept her. Lena met them upstairs with a whisper script of talking points. "The brunch room is full. Graham is seated front right with the Lagos Fund. Security placed Trent by the podium." "Trent is useful until he is not," Ava said. "He is already not," Lena said, and then wished she had swallowed the sentence, but she let it stand. Back at the curb, Trent approached the sedan. He rapped on the window with the 2-knuckle rhythm of a man convinced of his permanent welcome. Caleb lowered it 1 inch. "You cannot loiter here," Trent said. "I am on manifest," Caleb answered. "Do not get clever, back lot now." Caleb looked at the clock, at the route, at the math he had drawn in his head to deliver a billionaire and still arrive for a child. He shook his head once. "Primary driver stays with the car. That is the rule when the principal is inside." Trent smiled without warmth. "Here is the new rule." His hand reached for the door. "Out." Diego watched from the podium. He felt the click in his chest that means someone will be erased if no one names it. He left the podium and walked the distance that could get him written up. "Sir," Diego said to Trent, "his ID is green. You will want to keep him where policy says to keep him." Trent measured the room. A driver, a valet, a hallway of cameras, his own self-image. He put his hand on the door anyway. Upstairs, Lena's phone buzzed with a security note. Her stomach dropped. She looked at Ava, saw a mind already weaponized by the next meeting, and chose the narrow, dangerous mercy of interruption. "Ms. Kingsley," Lena said, voice low but unshaking, "your driver is being moved against policy. If anything happens on camera, it will be attached to your name." The quiet between those sentences and Ava's next breath was the sound of a decision forming. Not about kindness, about risk, optics, control. It would call itself strategy. It would be wrong, and it would cost her more than she knew. She kept walking. On the curb, Trent opened the driver's door and said the word that clothes violence in procedure. "Out." Caleb unlatched the seat belt slowly so the gesture could not be read as threat. He stood with the posture of a man who knows force can wear a badge and pretend it is a mirror. "Sir," he said, "place your hands where I can see them," Trent answered reflexively, as if they had switched roles. Cameras on the awning blinked red. Phones rose 2, then 5. Diego held his breath. Trent's hand touched Caleb's shoulder to pivot him away from the car. It was not a shove. In policy language it would become guidance. In a body it translated as "you do not belong." For a half-second the air went slow. The sound of the city slid back 2 rooms. Inside that stillness a memory opened. Caleb at 30, Naomi at 5, a department store in December. A clerk had said the same word in a different tone. "Out." The guard's palm had been as light as an edit. Naomi had cried because her father's body had been moved with the casualness of furniture. Back in the present, Caleb inhaled once. When he spoke, his voice was steady enough to be an indictment. "Remove your hand." "Or what?" Trent said, a smile he had practiced in mirrors edging his mouth. "Or policy will meet you faster than you expect." Caleb reached not for Trent but for the console inside the car. One touch. The call went out on a line labeled compliance/roadway, a hotline installed after another firm paid a headline's worth of money for an almost identical moment. "Kingsley Capital Compliance," a voice answered. "State your incident." Driver Caleb Monroe. Private Bay K-12 this morning included verbal discrimination. Current location Brixton Curb. Security is attempting unauthorized removal from principal's vehicle in violation of Protection Protocol 4. Cameras present. Logging stay where you are, recording. In the doorway behind them a pair of guests slowed. One lifted a phone, not gleeful, grim. Upstairs, Lena's screen flashed roadway escalation active. She turned the display so Ava could see. "This is happening now," she said. Ava's first instinct was fury at loss of control. Her second was to salvage a narrative. "We can contain this," she said. "You can stop it," Lena said. Ava stared at the elevator doors. They reflected her like a composite. Success, speed, the toll a person pays to be the sharpest object in a room. She lowered her eyes. "Finish the round table," she said. On the curb, Trent squeezed Caleb's shoulder once as if to leave a fingerprint you could not photograph. Then he took his hand away, because the word recording carries a different gravity than please. The phone at Caleb's ear spoke again. "This is Marla Chen from Compliance. Mr. Monroe, are you safe?" "Yes." "Do you require police?" "No, I require policy." "Copy. We have your principal on calendar at your location. We are notifying the board liaison. Keep the line open." Diego exhaled a breath he had been saving for some later life. He stepped back to his podium like walking out of a spotlight he never wanted. Ava's heels sounded in the corridor above them. She would descend and choose a story in real time. That is what powerful people do when the script slips: claim the narrative, punish the friction, rename the harm. The elevator opened. She looked first at Trent, as if cataloging his usefulness. Then at Caleb, as if he had produced the problem, not revealed it. "Get in the back," she said, voice sheeted with ice. "We are late." Caleb opened her door. She entered the cabin without looking at him, which is its own kind of looking. He closed the door, settled behind the wheel, and placed the phone where the mic would hear what it needed. "Route," he asked. "Whichever erases this," she said. "Nothing erases film," he said. They drove. In the rear glass, the hotel shrank. In the rear seat, Power began to understand that it had walked into a mirror and did not like its shape. In the front seat, Dignity held a wheel and kept the car between the lines, not because anyone deserved it yet, but because standards do not depend on apologies to exist. The car glided along Riverside like nothing had happened, but the air inside the cabin had a new weight. Compliance stayed on the line, quiet, recording. The city tried to distract itself with river shine and joggers in bright shirts. It could not. "Mr. Monroe," Marla Chen's voice came softly through the console. "For the record, confirm your status." Primary driver of Ms. Ava Kingsley, contracted through Fleet One on assignment authorized by Kingsley Foundation. Badge ID M4271. At 12:23, Security Officer Trent Daly made physical contact to remove me from the vehicle in violation of Protection Protocol 4. A witness named Diego Alvarez, valet, confirmed my clearance. Recording active. Ava's eyes lifted to the mirror and held. The mirror did not blink. "Ms. Kingsley," Marla continued, "compliance is escalating to board liaison per policy. You will receive a call in 1 minute." Ava said nothing. Silence is a tactic until it is an answer. Caleb turned onto Mercer, avoiding a rolling roadblock like water finds the low places. His hand stayed steady. He thought of Naomi's conference at 4 p.m., words already prepared to say to a teacher who liked facts. Naomi excels at patterns and kindness. She also carries the weight of the world's noise. Please grade her on her mind, not the volume of a room. The console lit again. Board liaison incoming. Ava tapped accept. Ava, said a voice with the careful politeness of power that has heard about a problem and would like it gone. Graham here. Trent tells me we had some confusion curbside. We had policy, Caleb said before she could speak. Graham paused, unimpressed by interruptions that came from the front seat. And who am I speaking with? Mr. Monroe, Ava said, voice flat with control. My driver. Good, Ms. Kingsley, optics after the Finch are brutal. Do not feed a story. Move your team. I will handle security. Caleb's eyes returned to the road. Do not handle security for the camera, Mr. Lowell. Handle security for the standard. Graham exhaled a small laugh. This the part where the help tells me about standards. Ava's throat tightened. She felt something old and ugly crawl up the back of her neck. She heard echo in the word help, heard how easily it becomes less. Graham, she said, compliance is on, choose your nouns. A hush, then, of course. Marla's voice returned. Kingsley policy states that any staff member initiating physical contact without direct threat loses access pending review. We are executing that now. She paused. Ms. Kingsley, we require your confirmation that Mr. Monroe remains primary driver until further notice. Ava stared at the back of Caleb's head as if the answer lived there. She could feel her power reaching for the script she had always trusted: deny, control, isolate. But there was also another script, one she did not know how to read yet: acknowledge, repair, learn. It had fewer lines for applause. It had more lines for being a person. He remains, she said, the words tasting like gravel because they were not the ones her reflexes had lined up. Confirmed, Marla said. Badge for Trent Daly is deactivated. Incident file is locked. The line clicked into passive record. Ava looked out the window. City, water, a billboard declaring that everything could be optimized if you would only surrender your soul for 30 days. She thought of her father's foundation, how it had insisted on dignity clauses in vendor contracts, how she had rolled her eyes at the extra friction and signed anyway. She had become the friction. She hated that even more than she hated losing. Next stop, she said, voice level, the Crescent, side entrance. Yes, Ms. Kingsley. He turned. The car's shadow kept pace on a wall flanking the lane like a twin that had learned restraint. In the rear seat, she opened a folder she did not need to open and did not read. She replayed the garage, her hand on the tie, the sentence that came out like a knife. She had been accurate about one thing: boundaries, but not the one she meant. There were lines she had crossed like they were drawn in pencil, and there were lines he refused to cross at all: pleading, theatrics, the bargain of anger. He had stayed inside a shape called standard, and now the world was reshaping around that steadiness. They reached the Crescent's portico. The manager swept out with a hand like a prop. Ms. Kingsley, welcome, he sang. We have reserved the garden table. Caleb stepped out to open her door. At the same moment, a photographer panned toward them. He was not hunting for scandal, he was hunting for her. But the lens widened and caught the driver, the car, the posture of grace holding a boundary like a tool. Ava paused at the open door. Mr. Monroe, she said, softer now, how long have you driven for Fleet One? 3 years. And before that, she said, you worked nights so your daughter could eat breakfast with you instead of your absence. He blinked just once. Yes. She nodded once, a measurement. Return at 1:30. We will run 2 more meetings and then the Brixton again. And Mr. Monroe. Yes. Thank you for not raising your voice. I did not need to, he said. The policy is loud enough. She went inside. He closed the door and leaned on the frame for a second, just a second, letting the air move through him like a tide going out. Then he sat, checked the clock, and began planning the last 2 hours before the conference with Naomi. The map of his life redrew its lines and still managed to find a route home. 135 turned into 140 because power likes to linger after it has been made to behave. When Ava came out, she wore calm like a coat. The garden's buzz fell behind. Caleb pulled away, and the city absorbed them in a rush of yellow cabs and late lunches. "We are going back to the Brixton," she said. "There is a table with money and a habit of underestimating women. I intend to empty them of both." "Noted," he said. The console flashed again. "Compliance. Addendum." Marla's voice entered with the precision of someone who writes timestamps into her sleep. "Ms. Kingsley, an outside party submitted video from the Finch curb. It is already circulating in a small investor group chat. We advise a statement anchored in policy and acknowledgement." "What I will not do is apologize to the internet," Ava said. "What you could do," Caleb said quietly, "is tell the truth to the room you are walking into." Ava's silence turned her attention into heat. He did not turn. He did not soften. "Say you allowed a culture where speed became permission. Say you are rebuilding the rules in daylight. People who actually like money respect systems that do not leak." She hated that he was right. She hated how much she had taught herself to despise being taught. At the Brixton, the brunch had slid into a long table negotiation. Graham Lowell sat with his chin up and his eyes down, which is what a man does when his power feels drafty. He stood when he saw Ava in the doorway and performed an embrace that never touched. "Ava," he said, "you look like the market when it remembers it knows how to climb." "And you sound like a billboard," she said, taking her seat. "Let us get to the part where you tell me why you are right." He smiled, because being read out loud is a kind of flattery if you have no other way to feel seen. In the car lane outside, Caleb kept the engine at a soft idle. He scrolled to the contact labeled Foundation, Ops, and tapped. A woman's voice answered with warmth that belonged to a life more humane than this curb. "Is this Mr. Monroe?" "Yes, ma'am." "This is Ruth Carter, Foundation Director. I have your Fleet One file. You have been with us 3 years. Your defensive driving class certificates are more current than some of my staff. What do you need?" "Verification," he said. "If anyone questions my professionalism again, I want to be able to hand them a truth they cannot fold." "Put me on speaker," she said. Inside the banquet room, conversation rose like a tide trying to drown a different sound. Ava lifted a hand. The table stilled. "Before we open numbers," she said, "I will address the thing you heard about." Graham's smile quivered into a warning. "We do not have to feed it," he said. "I do," she replied, "because I created the appetite." She kept her seat. She did not dramatize. "This morning I allowed speed to override standard. I allowed security to treat a cleared employee as expendable. That error is mine. Compliance is handling it. If you require a culture that uses people like paper, invest elsewhere. If you require a culture that corrects in daylight, stay seated." In the car, Caleb tapped the console. The cabin speaker opened. "Ms. Carter," he said, "please state your role." Ruth's voice filled the car like sunlight finds a room that has forgotten windows. "Ruth Carter, Kingsley Foundation. This is for whom it concerns. Mr. Caleb Monroe has served as primary driver on Foundation contracts for 3 years without incident. He is trained, cleared, and recommended. If you are listening to this and think you have a better metric than years of verified professionalism, step into the light and name it." He saved the message, labeled it proof/voice. Inside, there was a strange sound at the table, some mix of respect and the dull thud entitlement makes when it hits a wall. Graham masked his irritation with charm. "Bold," he said, "but the market prefers apologies without nouns." Ava leaned in. "The market prefers winners, and winners retain people who make the system stay honest." She stood. "We are done here for now. I have a driver to pay and a standard to meet." She left the table before anyone could turn that into a fight. They thought they could win. On the curb, she paused by the rear door. "Mr. Monroe," she said, "do you have that verification we talked about?" He tapped the console. Ruth's voice played on low volume, the kind of quiet that can be heard across a decade. Ava nodded once. "Good." She looked at him for a second longer than necessary. Back to Kingsley Tower, then one quick stop at Mercer Elementary by 4 o'clock. He blinked. "Yes, Miss Kingsley." For the first time that day, the clock in the city's exhale lined up. The ride back to Kingsley Tower felt different, not because the car changed, but because the weight in the rear seat had shifted from arrogance to decision. That is heavy in a better way. The elevator swallowed Ava, and she rose into a floor with glass walls and the kind of art that looks like money explaining itself. Graham was waiting in her office with an expression that thought it was concerned. "We need to get ahead of this," he said, "by moving behind it. I can have PR craft a story about an overzealous guard." "Trent had a name long before he had a badge," she said, "and so does the driver. We will not treat either like props. Sit down, Graham." He sat because even men who confuse volume with leadership understand the grammar of authority when it is spoken correctly. "Here is what will happen," she said. "Compliance already pulled Trent's access. HR will conduct the review. You will deliver an investor memo acknowledging the incident, outlining policy, and affirming that we do not equate speed with cruelty." Graham blinked. "And if investors want a scalp?" "They can have mine," she said. He tried not to show his surprise. She let him keep the effort. Downstairs, Caleb waited exactly where a primary driver waits, within reach, not in the way. Diego stepped to the curb with a thumbs up he did not quite raise. "Good to see you still in the seat," he said. "Good to see a system catch you," Caleb replied. Ava reappeared at 3:20, earlier than promised, which is a kind of apology for people who do not like the word. She slid into the rear seat. "Mercer Elementary," she said. He merged into traffic with a precision that felt like gratitude expressed in motion. For 6 minutes no one spoke. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Monroe," she said, "do you want overtime today?" "No," he said, "I want 4 o'clock." "We will get there," she said. "I do not miss my marks." "Neither do I," he said, and they both let the truth of that sit like a weight that holds a bridge steady instead of pulling it down. At 3:58, the sedan pulled to the curb at Mercer. He stepped out and opened the rear door, not for her this time, but to allow her exit if she wanted to join him. She did not. She stayed seated, looking at the school like it was a foreign country. Caleb moved with purpose, not hurry. A teacher waved. Naomi ran, backpack bouncing, hair divided in 2 quick braids. She saw her father and flew. He crouched and caught her. The hug was not cinematic, it was necessary. Ava watched through the glass. She expected to feel irritation at the softness. She felt something else that did not have a name she trusted. Naomi climbed into the passenger seat for the short ride home. Caleb looked to the rear. "Ms. Kingsley, I can resume at 5. Ava checked the time. "At 5:30, she said. "Standards are standards. Take the extra 30 like it belongs to you." He nodded. The light changed. The city moved around them. Somewhere in the tower they had left, a memo was being drafted. Somewhere on a phone, a video was mooting shame and turning policy into protection. And in a black sedan with a quiet engine, a child showed a drawing that said, "Be kind, be brave." He did not need the reminder. Someone else might. At 5:30, the sedan returned to Kingsley Tower for the day's last run to the investor forum. The lobby had found out what the curb already knew. People looked at Caleb now the way they should have looked all along, as the professional who kept the machine humane. Lena met them by the revolving doors. "Statement is drafted," she said. "Clear, specific, no heroics." She handed Ava a page. "Also, the board scheduled a conduct review for security at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Trent will not be present. Good, Ava said. He has already been present enough. They moved through the crowd to the forum hall. On stage, a moderator waited with a stack of questions written to flatter the rich. Ava stepped into the light and watched the room recalibrate. Graham sat front right, wearing a face that asked her to be less than the truth to keep more than the money. She had tried that math before. It never balanced. The moderator smiled. Ms. Kingsley, the market wants to know how you keep velocity without losing control. She could give the old answer, the one about tools and dashboards and ruthless focus. Instead, she looked at the room and told a story so short it could fit into the space between an inhale and an exhale. This morning I confused speed for permission, she said. Policy caught what pride had dropped. If you invest here, know this, we correct in daylight. We do not outsource dignity to convenience. Silence first, the kind that decides. Then a steady clap began, quiet but unembarrassed. Lena's eyes glinted with relief. Graham kept his hands still because applause felt like surrender. It was not. It was agreement that money is better when it does not rot the floor it stands on. Backstage, after the panel, Ava found Caleb by the service exit, where drivers ghost their principals back into the night. Mr. Monroe, she said, tomorrow you will report to the foundation at 9. Not to drive, to consult. We are building a transport protocol training based on today. I want your brain on it. Compensated, not patronized. He measured the offer the way he measured a lane change. What does this serve? What does this endanger? I will be there at 10, he said. At 9, I will be at securities review as a witness if compliance asks me to speak. She considered, then nodded. At 10, then. They stood a second in the fluorescent wash. Two people who had spent a day learning the edges of power and the sturdier center of respect. She lifted a hand, not for a shake but for a pause. Mr. Monroe, she said, about the garage this morning. You do not need to perform an apology for me, he said, gently. You need to build a system that means you never have to again. Her mouth tugged into something almost like a smile. Good, I prefer building. Me too, he said. The night had settled into the kind of dark that makes cities honest. He opened her door. She entered. The car moved. The final run of the day cut through streets that remembered them from sunrise. The garage swallowed the sedan again, concrete cool, light humming. Bay K-12 waited like a period at the end of a long, hard sentence. Caleb parked and powered down. He stepped out and opened the rear door. Ava exited, no storm this time. She looked smaller without motion to fill her silhouette. She faced him in the quiet. You said something earlier, she began. That policy is loud enough. It is, he said, if you let it speak before pride does. She nodded. Tomorrow it will, and Mr. Monroe, she paused. The words were almost heavy. I will be better than the worst thing I said. That is how people improve, he replied, by building a standard higher than their reflex. She held his gaze. The hum of the lights sounded like intention. She lifted her badge to the reader for the exit. The door unlocked with a warm tone rather than a harsh buzz, as if even the building understood. He moved to close the rear door. She stopped him with a thought spoken out loud. One more thing. Yes, Ms. Kingsley. Whatever time you need to make that conference every week, you will get, built into your contract. No penalty. He inclined his head. Thank you. It is not a favor, she said. It is good governance. She started toward the elevator. Halfway there she turned. Mr. Monroe. Yes. You were never the risk, she said. My habits were. He let the truth of that sit in the space between them, then answered with the line that would travel farther than either of them. I did not raise my voice, he said. I raised the standard. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. The doors closed on a face that had learned something that did not fit neatly on a balance sheet but would improve every number that mattered. Caleb returned to the car. He opened the glove compartment and looked at the drawing Naomi had made. Be kind. Be brave. He folded it once and slid it back with care, like placing a compass where it belongs. In the garage, alone with the echo, he stood as if anchored to the floor itself. Not heavy, just sure. The day had tried to turn him into a problem. He had remained a professional, and in remaining, he had turned the building around him into a place where being a person was not a liability. He walked toward the exit, not triumphant, not bitter, just steady. Justice did not shout tonight. It did what it always does when it is real. It went to work.